And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Zenka Caro, inspirational speaker on the TEDx stage and pioneer in mind over matter consciousness research. She's an expert in spoon bending and electromagnetic ham radio contact with ETs and past loved ones. Zenka, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's so nice to see beautiful Sedona in the background today.
It is. It's breathtaking. It's you're right inside of kind of the Grand Canyon because wherever you look, the mountains are there. It's so stunning.
Let me ask you this. Do you ever go out on that porch and just see UFOs?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Both sides. You look that way, you can look that way. In Sedona, it's almost guaranteed. There's so much activity. And the crystal bedrock, the electromagnetics of the whole place, so there's an entire crystal bedrock that's running around underneath Sedona. And so, anytime that it's not cloudy, I think the UFO tours even guarantee it.
Wow.
So that, it's not cloudy, you're seeing UFOs. So yeah, it's fun.
Well, how did you get into communicating with them using a ham radio?
Yeah, that was interesting. I met this guy, Jimmy Blanchette, through Mark Sims, and he had an entire antenna array that's, 3 stories tall. And he was beaming signals to, Venus and other things. We're talking very, very big. And he was saying like, hey, he would take pictures and he'd be like, hey, the Andromedans, like, I love and respect you. Can you show me your ships at 9 o'clock, at this coordinate, latitude, longitude? And they would do it.
Wow.
And so he was like, huh. And now his research has really developed. And in the beginning, he was like, okay, well, so we can use the same frequency on these ham radios and do the same thing. So we would broadcast, these different pictures that we would convert into sounds, or even just hold them. And I would sneak out to the different vortexes in Sedona in the middle of the night, like, okay. And my radios, when I set them up, they started talking almost right away. And it's evolved into quite an experience over time. So not only do they come when you ask them to, they also talk back on these radios. And what's so cool is that they're all, let me turn them down for a second. But what's so fascinating is they literally break the laws of physics. So I can have 20 radios. Oh, let me turn this last one down. I just brought out 4, but hello. So you can see they're all on the same channel. So just like if you were in your car listening to 101, you're listening to the same rock song because I'm on 101 in my car and I'm listening to 101. So these radios are all on the same channel, right?
Right.
So they should be all making the same noise. But when the ETs come in, they isolate each radio. And I've seen 30 on a table. And they're isolating, they're making noise in this one, but not that one. So they're breaking the laws of physics. It's impossible that on the same channel, they're all on the same channel, that one radio would be making a noise and another one that's on the same channel is not. And it's gotten so fascinating because one time I was in the park and Jimmy had actually asked me to make a little video. And I was in the park and I was like, okay, I'm going to ask him. And I said, can you give me 1 beep if you're Andromedan, 2 beeps if you're Arcturian, 3 beeps if you're Pleiadian? And they were like, it was like the first time that they had given this like very succinct, very precise sound, because we used to call it energy signatures because they would get really excited. They'd be like I would have them on all day long. They wouldn't say anything all night. I'd get up and start my day and they're like chattering, like, hey, how's it going? You know what I mean? And so that really blew my mind that all of a sudden they were responding with a specific code that I was asking for. And so that developed into multiple choice questions. And so we would ask them questions all the time. We'd be like, are you blue? And they'd be like, beep, beep, which is no. So we developed yes was 1 beep, 2 was no beep, 2 was no. And 3 was like, ask another question, because a lot of these questions we ask them, it's like their frame of reference is so different. It's like it's like, can we teleport to the grocery store? And it's like, it's like, they're like, rephrase the question, you know what I mean? It's like, so, and then 4 beeps is clapping. So we also give them this, because they're very emotional. Like, I remember, sometimes they would just be silent. Like, I would go, people have people over and they'd just be silent. And then one time I went over to my friend's house. I was like, let's do a CE5 with them, brought them over, sent the radio thing, like we wanted to do it at that time, went over to his house. The radios went completely berserk. They were like, we were seeing UFOs. My friend was like, okay, now I believe you with this thing. And then after everything died down and we were all like, okay, take a breath. And then I drive home and they're all quiet. And I was like, you guys, thank you so much for doing that. And then they went and like went crazy again. You know what I mean? So they're very emotional, which is great. But anyway, so it's been a fascinating journey, and we've taken different teams through this process of research, and we've actually even made music with ETs. So that's been our most recent experiment. So it's been really, really fun.
How are you doing that?
So at LightNet, the Starseed Academy, we have this like it's a mystery school, but we flip the classroom completely, and we throw people into whatever they're trying to learn the first day. So if they're trying to learn remote viewing, the first day they're having a remote view. If they're trying to learn light language, the first day they're doing light language. So the first time we did this team, we have teams of 8 to 12, so it's very experiential. We were just like, let's just see if all 8 to 12 people can get the radios to sound and communicate with them. That happened. Then the next season, we said, oh, let's try to get it so that the ETs send us images back. And we had a guy in our class, and he set up an antenna that we jacked into our computers, and then had a digital system that would cubic SRL, which would allow us to see the signals coming in. And sure enough, Jeff, on 144, it was a mirrored image that looked like faces. We called it a totem. So it was really fascinating. So there's something about this frequency that Jimmy invented, the 144, that's very unusual. It's Planck length divided by 432, and as we know, 432 is the frequency of the Earth. It's where we are, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, so we got back pictures. We couldn't believe it. And then the next season, we were like, okay, well, let's go even bigger with this. And someone said, well, let's see if they'll talk through the radios. Seriously? Oh my gosh. So I was at Conscious Life Expo last year, and we'll be there next week. And I'm doing my talk, and I tell everyone to go into their hearts, because we know that that's like the electromagnetic fuel for all manifestations and connections and everything, right? I was like, go in your heart, think of what you want. All of a sudden the lights go off and on, and the voice comes through the radio for the first time. And everyone, it was packed out. So everyone's like, oh, wow. And I was like, oh, wow. And then we come back, and another girl in the class, and these classes are hilarious, because you've got super geek guys that are like, retired, whatever, super into the technology. And then you've got channelers who don't know anything about the tech, but are like, so there's this girl, she's like a channeler, and she was like, oh my God, I got voices through my radio. And she got kind of freaked out about it. Like, it was that's kind of a whole nother story, but she got voices. So then the next season, we're like, well, let's just make music with them. So like, we contacted this guy, Jimmy Stiles, who creates VBE software. It's called VBE, and they're ghost apps to talk with ghosts. And they use the accelerometer, they use the temperature control, they use the electromagnetics of the phone, and allow ghosts or people in another dimension actually press, I don't know how they do it, but they use these different things, the accelerometer, and they can affect the sounds or the image on the phone. And this guy's like a super genius guy. and he's got a million different apps. And so I said, well, and so he created one specially for us that had all of these crop circle images that the ETs could press on, like one image, and it would make a noise. And he was like, well, what if we got them to have a common symbol language with them? And so one of the little crop circle pictures was a picture of a human. And sure enough, they pressed that because that's what we asked them to like come in alignment with, like our understanding together. So this is like literally trans-dimensional communication. And it's almost like anthropology, because like I said, we'd ask them all these things about how they do schools and all these different things and how to make ET contact even, and they respond. So anyway, this guy Ricky, he's like, well, how do you know that I mean, I said to him, I said, do your apps work with just ghosts or do they work with ETs? And he's like, I don't know, let's try. And so we get everyone together and we're like, okay, let's do this connection. And sure enough, he talks to this ghost that visits him quite often. And he was like, stop interrupting. Finally, that guy stops and another girl tries to bring in angels. It didn't really work very well. But then we brought in ETs, we called them in, and the ETs were answering questions. And we would ask them, how many of you are there? 3. Are you from there? I think, and they said yes. So it's been really interesting. And we ended up playing music with them using all sorts of devices, theremins, radios. We had these phone apps that he designed. One of them that he designed was like a guitar. One was a piano. The sounds were horrible. Like the guitar was pretty cool. They would go on and on for the guitar. It was hilarious. But the piano was like really bad sounding because we weren't musicians either. So I'm sure us playing, piano doesn't sound that great, but for them it wasn't either. So it sounded a little creepy because it was like, it's like, but we had a ball and we would sing to them. We would start each session singing to them and playing to them because they wouldn't talk to us for like 2 weeks. They weren't making any noises in the class for 2 weeks. And then the 3rd week we started serenading them and they started serenading us back. So it's a very fascinating relationship, but it's real. And I love the fact that you can measure it. It's not like, oh, I channeled something and these are the voices I heard in my head, which is also very, 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 very real. But for people that are, scientific thinking and need to have something in the material world, having these radios has been such a delight and such a welcoming sign for them because they can hear it, I can hear it, everyone can hear it,
Well, what do their voices sound like? Do they sound humanoid or mechanical?
So the creepiest thing is that the girl that got it coming through, and I've gotten it once, and I've gotten it coming through my phone before too, did sound humanoid. But the interesting thing is that when she got it come through her voice, she said it sounded like her own voice.
Wow.
And it said like, hello, are you there? Can you hear me? You know what I mean? So it was like, and that was one of the most striking things for her because she was like, wow, it sounded like myself. And so, yeah.
That's amazing. What kind of radios are those that you have?
Yeah, so these are Baofeng. They are BF. These are the F8 HP, but you can get the 5s, which are a little bit cheaper. So they're $25 each. You get a 2-pack, and you want to get a 2-pack so you can see the so you can see the phenomenon, right? And you do need a license to operate these, but you don't even have to press the talk button for it to work. So you set the intention, you call them, and remember, they will not play with you if you are not respectful of them. So if you're like, prove to me you exist, or like, is my hair curly? You don't want to ask them stupid questions because they're 10 times more intelligent probably than we are. And so it's kind of like they're not into being circus performers. They're not into like, humoring your sense of disbelief or belief. You know what I mean? Like, so it has to be genuine, and from your heart, truly from your heart. And I don't even ask questions that I know the answer to because it's disrespectful to them. So anyway, so yeah, and so yeah,
Let me ask you
and it's
this.
the frequency is 144.1.101. Yeah.
144.101. Let me remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Dot 101. Now, even though I do quite a bit of UFO and ET videos, there's almost always a few people in the comments that will say, those are not ETs. Those are, demons or spirits. Do you think that that's possible, or if you concluded that it's not spirits, those are actual ETs?
Well, it definitely could be because we do like I think you can communicate with people on the other side. So I think that there are, there's different densities, right, where different people live. The ETs are not always on that first layer density, whereas people that have passed are, right? So the ETs can come down and they can interact with you, and so can your past loved ones. So you do have to, like, I always ask, you know what I mean? Like, who am I speaking to? And again, maybe, maybe they could lie. I guess you could say, oh, well, they might be lying and saying that they're not a past loved one, but I mean, like I said, the stuff that they answer is absolutely wild. You know what I mean? The things that we've asked them about, things that we've gotten wrong about, you know what I mean? Thinking from our own perspective. So, I think it's just like anything. You have to use your truth meter. You know what I mean? Like there's times where I'll get full body chills, full like hair on my, standing on the end, and yeah, you have to ask, but both of them can use the equipment for sure.
Well, what are some of the most shocking things that they've revealed to you?
Well, I mean, like I said, I thought it was interesting that they said that they were transparent. So the weird thing is we think, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're right here next to us right now. I'm pretty sure that there is an overlap in terms of where like worlds are placed, because I've come to believe that they can see me very well. It's not like it's not like you're on a crazy telephone that's miles away and you can barely hear each other. And it's like, what's going on? They can see me and they can actually know my thoughts because, I was in a huge CE5 with 50 people out. The radios were going tick, 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 which is three beeps, which is ask another question or rephrase or ask another question. And I was like, are you sure you want me to do this with the group? And they were like, duk, 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 three. And I was like, and then 2 minutes later I'm like, are you guys sure? And I'm thinking this in my head and they go duk, 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 three. So it's like they also have telepathy, and I think that's a hard thing for us to understand. And yet it's not, because there's a lot of times where what I'm thinking before I say it, or you know what I mean? Children are often telepathic, which can be very confusing to parents because they don't understand why you can say something straight out, but it was what you're thinking and stuff that they're also picking up on. So it's being on that same wavelength, right? We started um, a new word at LightNet Starseed Academy called Zysign. And Zysign is actually when you're so on the same wavelength as someone else that you say that it's like the jinx that we used to say, when two people say the same things at the same time. So it's like the same instinct. I'm going to go open the door. It's not that I know that you like, oh, Jeff wants to go open the door. I'm going to open the door because I got this vibe that he wants to open the door. It's that you're both thinking, let's open the door. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, so they work telepathically with you. But I always say that it's good to speak things out loud. So it's good to say, I want to contact you guys tonight. You're welcome to use my radios to do that, or I don't want to talk anymore. Or it's good to say it out loud just for yourself and for just like utmost clarity. You know what I mean? But yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up because many times I've asked, how are these UFOs that are so far away picking up our thoughts? And I believe only one guest ever told me that the being is right next to us and the being is just putting on a light show for us.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think that, yeah, I mean, we're starting to just now understand quantum physics and reality and how this hologram is put together. So there is, we're at kind of a crux, like a juxtaposition right now where ETs are becoming very physical in our world. So it's not like they're always going to be just here, right here, but not seen. They're actually moving more and more into this as we calm down and drop our fear. They can't come if everyone's scared because we're going to be working with them for many, many years to come. So it would be a misstep for them to come too early because then we have to deal with the whole undoing of that story, right? It's like if we're going to be in a big war with them, that would be lame and that would not serve our long-term interest, to start off that way, right? So I think they're kind of waiting for that. But they do have physical ships that you can see with your physical eyes. If anything is even physical, who even knows? Like maybe we're in like a complete and total, maybe we're dreaming right now, but but yeah, but yeah.
Do you think it's possible that in a parallel reality, the Earth is another planet called something else, and there are other beings living there, and they've got the ability to kind of cross realities into ours, and that's what's going on?
Yes, I think that that's totally true. I don't know that it's called a different thing, but I believe that um, we don't have the sensitivity to see into other frequencies and higher dimensions. And we can do that now with frequency technology. You can do that by training your brain. There are a lot of people that believe that your brainwave frequency determines how you experience reality, right? So it's modulating that frequency that's going to get you. So it could be that there's just one big expensive holodeck and we're all playing on the same deck. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But I do believe that, yeah. So, and then they live also on other planets, but yeah, I mean, yeah, they're right here. I can I can do that. I mean, they turn off the lights off and on in my house all the time, you know what I mean? And they're using the same signal system that we've developed with them. So they're using yes, no, and all that stuff. So they can make their presence known and they can be in this reality with you for sure.
Do you think that the ETs would be up for contacting you right now?
Well, they haven't been on the radios. It's been kind of quiet. Um, so I don't know. We can see. If they want to talk, they'll beep.
Maybe we can just leave it
They
on while we're
almost always
talking,
do.
and maybe
Yeah,
they'll check in with us.
yeah, they almost always do, but it just depends. Like, so again, like I don't know. If they think it's appropriate, they will. They have on the last couple of shows, but I don't know. I don't
We'll see.
know.
You never know. Well,
Yeah.
I said in the beginning that you're a spoon bending expert, and obviously well, not everybody, but most people seen that in the Matrix. Do you feel like our reality is some sort of simulation?
I do. So I'm starting to realize the direct correlation between my thoughts and my reality. And you can add thoughts, feelings, and emotions because those things, or I guess let's say just thoughts and emotions are creating the reality around me. And we're also actively pursuing and researching at LightNet and the Star Seed Academy how to actually create artifacts in reality that we have placed there, or we've placed there. I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, we have all that power. It's a dance that you do. It's like it's a communion that you do with every all that is, and whatever, however you want to call it. But so we've started doing this, and I think spoon bending is what we call extreme reality creation. So you're basically creating something in reality that you can do because many thousands of people have done it. Um, and it takes belief to actually do it. But let me go back to what I was saying. So we started doing these things called blooms when we did waking induced lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming is this idea that you're in a dream and you go, wait a minute, I can actually turn on this light bulb, put my hand through my hand, and I could actually dream up whatever I actually wanted to happen. So you might be like, oh, I want to meet this person, or oh, I want to fly, or I want to do this, right? So it's that moment where you go, oh, wait a minute, I'm in control to some extent of this dream, of your dream, and oh, cool, let's do something. And so we started to try to apply that into our waking life, and looking at, if this is a dream, how could we affect it? And so we started doing things like, oh, we want to see purple cars. Like my son was like, oh, I'll believe in magic if you can see 5 purple cars. And so we were identifying like maroon cars that were kind of purplish, and he was like, that's not good enough. It has to be purple. And I'm like, okay. And pretty soon, and I kid you not, like within a week, I'm driving out of my like neighborhood to go pick him up, and right behind me, or no, it was right in front of me, was a bug car that was bright purple. Then now his school's 5 minutes from my house. So the next, like in 5 blocks later, I see a purple car coming the other way. And I get to school and there's another purple car. And we are talking crayon purple. And this started happening. We would go out to breakfast and we'd park, and there would literally be a purple car that would be like an SUV. And I'm like, I didn't even know they made purple cars. So we started freaking out because we were just like, what is going on, and so we would get more and more into this, and we would start, and we had a friend the other day who was like, well, and we're like, we encourage group, and we used to do this in our teams, like our waking loose, like our teams, right? And so we'd all pick something, and one guy was like, one week we had like blue bears. And and he was like, I can't see anything. I never saw a blue bear, because we'd text each other on the Telegram chats, like, I saw it, I saw one, and we count. And he's like, I can't do this. I can't, he's like a sort of a skeptical mind. You have to be very careful of your skeptical mind. You have to be so careful. So he's like, I can't see anything. And then he goes, oh, he literally pulled from in front of him a granola package that had a bear with the blue headband on and a blue like thing. And he was like, oh God. And he's like, I've been eating this all week. Another person so one of our assignments was a red dot. It was a red dot. And I remember landing in Phoenix, and we went to a hotel, and the entire lobby of this hotel and the bar had red dot wallpaper. And I was just like, what? So anyway, my friend came over the other day, and he goes, well, it was these 2 twins and the boyfriend. And he was like, well, why don't we just manifest $100? Like that's our little thing that we're going to bloom. And I was like, man, this is messed up. Like, I wonder if this is even going to happen for him. They call us 2 days later. They had been hiking on top of a mountain in Sedona, and they take a picture of this thing that's $1 billion dollar bill sitting on top of the summit, on top of the mountain. And it's it was actually a religious guy saying that ETs exist. Look it up in the Bible. There's proof in the Bible that ETs exist. It was like, then my son found $100 bill. Like, so we started, and then we looked at this guy's YouTube that was describing it, and he had like $100 of bills, like all in it. Like, it's very fascinating when you attach meaning to things. and see them like just bloom into your reality. So to answer your question, this is like the question that I'm most obsessed with right now. If we're in a hologram, how does it work? How can we influence it? And how does it work? And I think one of the things it does is it works with genuine, heartfelt desires too. Like that's why we put a lot of meaning in these blooms. Like for my son to believe in magic was important to me. So those purple cars were coming. You know what I mean? Like, and so if you put a lot of love or meaning, like I want to be a like, I want to have a successful, you know, YouTube channel, and you put that and you show up, then the universe is going to somehow assemble itself in order to bring that reality to you. But you have to stay consistent with it, and you have to work with your mind, because often your mind has a lot of subconscious beliefs that don't align with your goals. And we do this in our breakthrough coaching we have right now. It's like really unpacking, because your life is a representation of your inner self. Like that's crazy. We don't understand why that's true. That's why they say, like, if you want peace in the world, you really have to become peaceful inside yourself. If you want to have a successful TV show on YouTube, you have to deep down believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself deep down, you know, and believe that it's possible, want it, and all those things. So I think it's a very beautiful simulation that we're in. And I see, all the reflections and all the lessons all the time. And sometimes it can be very overwhelming because there's nothing random in terms of the way I see the world. There's nothing random. So when you get out of your comfort zone and you meet new people, or you go out on vacation, or you do new things, you'll start to see more signs and symbols, and it's all talking to you. Everything is talking to you. The universe is talking to you all the time. Which goes back to us being in our dream. You go to bed at night, Jeff, and you have a dream. It's your dream. So of course everything is going to relate to you because it's part of your own dream. It's like coming out of you. So what if we all have copies of the universe, or we're co-creating together because we're actually one thing. You're part of me and I'm part of you. So it's a very paradoxical, very fascinating, very confusing thing to take responsibility for your reality and step into your creatorship and that. And I think that with ET contact, a lot of people say the way to make contact is from within. So that's really, you want to strip your fear out of it. You want to bring in your authentic desire to do it, especially now when it's a little bit not so mainstream. It's going to take a little bit more desire on your part. It's going to take a little bit more belief on your part.
Do you think it's possible that when you were seeking out those purple cars, somehow the universe had that person drive down the same street as you that day? And or if someone's seeking out a blonde woman with, a butterfly necklace, the universe may steer you in the direction so someone would see that another day.
Right. Yeah. So this is the biggest question after you say, okay, well, if we are in some sort of simulation, then is there someone outside of the simulation that can manipulate my experience? And, or are they part of it too? Like, is there any way to get out of it? Are there any watchers? Are there any people that can jerry rig the purple car or the thing, right? And I have come to the conclusion that there are people that are outside of the simulation that can affect the simulation. But and it could be ETs, because obviously they'd be capable of creating a simulation this sophisticated. And we're ETs. In fact, we're part of their line. You know what I mean? Or we may be ETs having a human experience, but we evolve into the grays, right? That's what, we become futuristic at some point, and we evolve into something that looks different, right? We evolve into something that can time travel. We evolve, like, we're starting to realize how quickly I mean, we can modify our genes already. Of course, we can make our, you know, stomachs different and our eyes more, be able to see more in darkness. And of course, like, that's all that designer DNA, everything like that, that's all like right over here in the future. So of course we could evolve into ETs. Of course we want to travel outer space. But so this is a big question though. So I don't know if it's just my mind that wants to see a purple car. And so the mathematics, I think the universe is on some sort of an autopilot math. That's why it's very, very important that we don't blow everything up right now. That's why everyone's like, because this is a self-recursive mathematical experience, right? So you come down, and I mean, astrology can kind of tell you this. Like, I mean, I've had personal life crises looking at those different measurements, like gene keys and like astrology and all this stuff, because it's like, oh, well, I'm just like a robot. Like, I'm literally a little robot living out my pattern, that was created. Like, how can this be so spot on? Like, this is messed up. Like, do I even have free will? You know what I mean? But the point is that um there's like, if we blow a nuclear bomb or do something like that, it does have consequences. And the simulation feeds upon itself with statistical probabilities. And so you can't hit the undo button, to some extent. And so we've got very powerful weapons. AI is a weapon, all of it can be a weapon, really. And so we have to be careful what we interject into the environment. And the same thing, you have to be careful what you think all the time. If you catch yourself being paranoid because that guy is out to get you, because this isn't going to work, because you are going to live that reality. And so you have got to be like, why am I scared of this? Why am I creating this? And it's often 7 generations back. So it's not like you can point fingers like, oh, why is this person paranoid? Because it is real. Like, it is, you've had that experience. There's a reason for it. It's a survival experience, but you've got to be careful what you think. And we have to be careful what we do, because everything is churning, together.
Now, you said that blooms were kind of like lucid dreaming when you're awake, right? Can you give us a little more detail about how you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And we just got a bunch of shirts printed that says lucid living. So that's our phrase for it, right? So
That's
that's
great.
going to be available soon on the Starseed Academy site next week. So yeah, so lucid living is this idea that, okay, so what I would recommend, and you can play alone or you can play it with someone you care about, make sure that person is very open-minded, because when you combine, same thing with spoon bending, if you've got someone that's totally blocked and doesn't think that they can do it, you can put someone that's really good at it next to them, and that'll bring that down, but it all adds up. That's why, like, energy in cities can be heavy, because you've got a lot of thoughts that are piling up into that environment. So with blooms, I would say pick something that means something to you. Like, for me, it's the butterfly. So I see, like, the other day, I mean, I see them everywhere. And it's like the universe winking at me, and saying, like, here you go. Here, delight you, And I have different colors of butterflies that mean different things to me. But I would take something that means something to you. And then you need to request that it shows up in your reality. And then you need to relax about it. So sometimes there'll be a 2 or 3 day delay. Sometimes it'll be longer for people, because their brain has to relax. You have to relax before it happens, because if you don't relax, you're reverse manifesting it. You're basically telling the universe, I'm not sure I can bloom anything, because I might not be good enough. My brain might not be right. I might not, So you're basically creating the fact that you're not going to get blooms. So you have to just have fun with it, be like a kid, take out the logic part of your brain, and then just set it into motion. And I have different animals for different friends of mine, So one of the guys like mantis being, and all of a sudden he was here, and there was literally mantises all along the window. There was like 6 outside on the wall, and they only show up when he's here. It's like interesting. So anything that you give meaning to and has a deep meaning, use those as your starters.
I'm so glad that you gave us that time delay because I toy around with manifesting quite a bit, and I had been wondering, why is there a delay?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And it's also like with spoon bending, we the people that try too hard end up not being able to do it because they feel too much personal pressure. I'm a Reiki healer. Why shouldn't I be able to bend a spoon? Like, is something wrong with me? What is that person going to think of me? On and on and on and on. So you have to really be like unattached. Like they say, surrender, unattached. We say, let it go when we do spoon bending. One of the interesting things that's been happening with me for spoon bending is at one session, I couldn't bend the fork where we do hands off bending. And I was like, oh, I wonder why this isn't working. And so I picked up a nut because we use a pendulum to see if it will bend. So we ask it if it will bend. And we do these once a month on LightNet. But so I go over and I get the fork, I get a different fork, and I pull the fork in, and it's like basically just bends before I'd even been like, okay, bend, 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 before I'd really like focused my energy on it. So it's like doing it. And this goes back to your question. Are there ETs or other people able to influence this reality? If they can see us, hear us, are they allowed to, well, we know they can use the radius and whatever. So I started to wonder if they were bending my stuff. And what happened is when I would go to restaurants, the forks would already be bent. So I'd sit down at a table and the fork at my place was already bent. And last night, and to this extent, so now I have a collection where I basically label every restaurant and every fork, and it's like getting to be really hilarious. And sometimes, you know, it's maybe 6 times it hasn't happened, but those 6 times I've been more nervous about, was it going to happen this time? You know what I mean? And the other day we go, so the other symbol that I use quite often is checkerboards. So checkerboards is my reminder that this is a dream, that anything is possible, and that go ahead and let your dream come out. Go ahead and let the lucidity come out, right? Like, know that this is a dream, know that anything is possible, and go ahead, right? Just like the moment in your. And so checkerboards are my symbol. It's almost like the substrate is showing itself without the map on top, without the skin on top. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I go to a restaurant the other day, very fancy restaurant, and I'd never seen these forks. I'd been there before. And both my fork and Adam's fork were completely bent. I don't know if you can see that. But it was really cool. And last night I go to a Thai place and literally the guy is setting the table in front of me and he goes, and he places this down at my table. And I was crying. I was not in a good mood. And this was like the universe just like, oh, we love you. It's okay. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just like, so the universe, yeah, is really benevolent. And I think we've noticed in the mystery school is you can't do magic if you're stressed out. You can't do magic if you're nervous. So part of, and that's probably why kids do well at magic, because they're kind of relaxed. They're not in their head. They're not worrying about 1,000 things. And so when you can relax yourself, same thing with CE5s. You want to relax yourself. If you're nervous, like what's going to happen, it's not good. So I think one of the biggest things that everyone can do that's listening to this is start to try to have a worldview where the world is benevolent. Try to eventually come to a place where you say, everything in the universe is here in a benevolent way. And if it's not, it's because I'm supposed to learn something. There's a part of us that is still messing up. There's a part of us that are still causing wars, but that's a part of us. It's a part of you. It's like, that's the 16% over here that's still selfish, that's freaking out, panicking, this and that, whatever, money, this, war, this, whatever. There's still a part of us that's in that. But in general, if you can feel that the world is benevolent, you'll experience much more magic.
Do you think that by either reading something or watching something that's negative happening in the world, your mind starts thinking about it and imagining things that are negative or bad, and then you start manifesting those bad things in your life? So you have to be careful.
Yeah. And I think that the TV has basically put us in that situation. So we started tanking. That's probably why all the ETs showed up. We are tanking our entire collective emotional state by watching news that sells because it's about bad news. They never do the evergreen. They never do the good stories, barely ever. But that's how they sell it. That's how it sells, because we also come here to feel emotion, right? So any emotion is better than no emotion. It's like, oh my God, that happened. That's crazy. We crave to feel emotion. But the problem is that we had a mass hypnotic television thing where you could have millions of people thinking the same thing about, oh my God, maybe there is going to be a war, or maybe the economy is going to collapse. And then we actually collapse the economy because we're all like that. So we have to be extremely careful. And I think that, thank God for YouTube. Thank God for like the internet, because there is like these other stories and people are like, I'm not even sure I believe that stuff that's on TV. You know what I mean? Like mass media. So it's like, but when you expose yourself to all those thoughts, feelings, and emotions, you're running the risk of taking them on, because it is very you are affected by it. Yeah, choose your friends wisely, choose your television channels wisely. It's not that you can't resist those and you'll fall with them, but once you fall, and I've fallen many times, you can get into a paranoid, like, spiral of panic. And it just goes, one thing builds on another thing, builds on another thing, builds on another thing. And pretty soon you're panicked, or you're super sad, or and it's hard to get out of that. So, yeah.
Well, what are the different types of spoon bending?
Yeah, so we have different types. So the first thing is called warm forming, and that's where we do like these curly cues and things like that. And when we do these spoon bending online, Jack Houck said that it's good to have at least 15 people. We usually have about that amount, and we get 85% success. So that's the mission of my life, is to make sure that everyone knows that this is not guru land. Like, you don't have to be a special person. Your chakras don't have to be aligned. You don't have to be a Ascended Master. You don't have to do crazy stuff like this. Everyone can do it. And part of it's just believing and having the courage to try and show up and do it. So this is warm forming, and that's the first level. Jack Houck called that kindergarten level. Then we do high school, which is bending the buckle of the spoon. And then we have this, which is, hands-off bending. So that's graduate school. And then we sprout seeds and things like that. So the time thing is a big thing for a lot of people. So sometimes when I'm giving, it's fun the way we do this, because in these sessions, so we invite, so I lead the first round, set the stage, set the energy, whatever. And then if Jeff, I'll give you a pass to come in, but you lead the next round. So you're like, oh, I've never done this before, but like, okay. And then you're leading the next round. So it's really, you set your intentions right at where you want to bend, and you put the energy in there. And then we do it in different ways. Sometimes we ask the ETs to come and help us. Sometimes we think of the places that we love the most in the world, like there's all different kind of nuances. Sometimes we deprogram people's brains, to say, like, we'll use the pendulum and be like, is it safe for me to bend a spoon? And it'll be no. And they're the ones that aren't bending, is because there's a subconscious belief that it's not safe to bend a spoon because you're going to be in a witch trial or whatever, right? So there's all these different things that can come up for different people, but everyone ends up doing it. It's like pretty much, it's like you just relax and get out of your way. And we do, but it's not about bending the spoon. We always tell people too, like, it's not actually about bending spoon. It's about having a successful YouTube channel, or about being a great husband, or whatever other things you're trying to do, right? It's just a way, it's a trophy to show you that's true. But like, there's also like the rice experiment, right? So we know our intentions and emotions. This rice is I love you, and this rice is I hate you. And it's rotted. And this is in 2 weeks.
It's amazing.
Right. So you can look up Emoto's rice experiment on the internet, and the image things, and just go. So,
So what are you doing to the rice to make it change?
So what I do is I'm like scientist level type of thing. So I do everything, like, I try to be measured about it. So I take, and we're going to be selling the rice kits, but basically you just put rice in a jar with a lid with water. It can be cooked or uncooked. If it's cooked, add a little bit of extra water. And you want to have 3 jars, the same, exact same, whatever. Make sure they're clean. I boil them just to make sure, that there's no bacteria in one or the other or whatever, right? Then you open it up, and I put on my phone 60 seconds, and I say, I love you. Thank you for being here. You are so amazing. Like this, you're so white and beautiful and clean and clear, and you smell so good. Close it. Next one. The one is ignore, and you have to keep them about 2 feet apart, from one another. Don't bunch them up in your counter. Then the last one, you say, I hate you. I don't know why you exist. You're rotten. You smell disgusting. This is horrible, like whatever. And then in 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, the one will rot. It's wild. We've done this many times. And we've even done it with just writing hate and leaving it for 2 weeks. But it's like, I recommend doing the first step first, because your brain also sometimes can resist this. Because if your brain accepts quantum physics as the observer effect, that you're creating everything in your reality, it's like you don't want to do that, because then you have to take responsibility for all the bad stuff too. So it's like, you got to ease your ego into all this stuff sometimes, because the implications of the fact that we can change reality with our thoughts is overwhelming the way we've been raised. But it's actually really freeing and really fun.
Do you think that you can do a kindergarten level spoon bending for us?
Oh yeah, I could probably do that. Yeah. So what we do is we bring, so we bring the energy down. So I'm going to clear the space. I'm already feeling stuff here. So I'm going to raise my vibration and imagine white light everywhere. And I connect. And all that white light is going to be coming through my head and through my feet. It's going to radiate out through my heart. I'm going to send love to all the people that are here with us watching this, hoping that you too will take a spoon, go to a thrift store, and try this at home. So I'm sending all of you curious people a ton of love. And I'm going to bring all that heat, all that beautiful energy down my arm. And into the spoon. And I'm going to say, bend, bend, bend. And then I'm going to let it go and see if it gets soft. There you go. So it becomes like, now I can't bend it back. So once it's there's like a 15-second kind of window where the grain structure, like the tile grouts, open, and it becomes like rubber, soft, and then it hardens up. And this one didn't go all around because it didn't, but different spoons want to do different things. Oftentimes we ask the spoon to participate with us because it's part of, there's different techniques. Now, I also would recommend doing it with a group because you're taking the energy of everyone in that moment. We didn't think we could do it online, then we started doing it online. So you take that moment and you do it. And about 50% can do it on their own by themselves afterwards. So this was the research of Jack Howe with 16,000 people. So there is something about that.
Thank you for showing that to us. What about seed sprouting? How are you doing that?
So it's funny because a lot of people, so some people won't be able to do the kindergarten bending, but they'll be able to do the hands off. And some people that can't do the spoon bending can do the seed sprouting. And that's really interesting, right? And so some people feel that they can be really loving and nurturing and they connect with nature. And so it's easier for them to bring that emotion forward. And so we take mung beans that we soak overnight, and then we put them in our hands, and they're green and they have like a husk on them. And then you just say, like, it's the same thing. You say, sprout, sprout, sprout. And then you say, let it happen. And then when you say, let it happen, you're supposed to not think, you're supposed to think of other things, right? But you just allow it. And so the husk breaks apart, like it breaks off. And then that first little thing starts to come out. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Oh,
It's
that's
fascinating.
cool. That's cool. So your organization is called lightnet.org?
Yes, and we are next week for Conscious Life Expo, we're going to be opening starseedacademy.org. You could take a little bit of a peek, but it's there, but it's coming. So that's happening next week. And lightnet.org. You can become a member if you do it on lightnet.org. It's $88 for the whole year for unlimited spoon bending once a month, plus workshops with Mary Rodwell, Dan Winters, Adam Curry, like all these Tween Ray, all these amazing people. And it's going to go to 144 on the new site next week. So yeah, grab a membership. We'd love to have you. You can also apply to the Academy we only are selecting 30 or 40 people this year to go through the Academy. So if that's something you want to develop your skills, remote viewing with Alan Steinfeld, things like that, you can apply on the starseedacademy.org and the application button. And that's also in LightNet too. You can hit that apply button. So yeah.
That's great. Well, you've got the website, you've got the YouTube channel. Do you have anything else that you're working on that you want us to know about?
Well, we have a few things in the works, which are not open yet, but they're very beautiful projects where we want people to reconsider what is possible. And we do that in the spoon bending and things like that. But we want to take this even down to finding your purpose and mission. So unfortunately, only 10% of people know what their mission is, and only 5% are living it. Jeff, you might be one of those 5%. It's like, I want to do this show. I'm organizing my life around it. I'm diving into it. It can be scary as it's going to work, but you did it and you're doing it and you're successful. But and so you're this bright light. You're this passionate person that's giving joy and love and information and community to your people. And we want that for everyone. You don't have to be famous and have a channel, but it's good if you're happy with your life and you feel like you're doing what you came to do. And unfortunately, the way we have the school system or the life in general, we don't ever get to ask those questions or remove the beliefs that stop us from following our dreams. So at LightNet, these projects, we're doing the Holo Movement Purpose Lab, where we're interviewing 100 people like you, Jeff. I'd love to interview you of how you found your purpose. And then we look for the patterns and we look for the tools. So we interviewed Richard Rudd of the Gene Keys the other day. You know what I mean? We interviewed Bruce Lipton. So those people have discovered how to do it. And we asked them, how did you do it? How did you do it? And they have different stories. Some of them traveled, some of them quieted their minds. Some of them did the Gene Keys. Some of them did astrology. Someone met a mentor. Someone knew when they were 7 years old. So we're looking at all those 100 and what is the pattern. And then we do the same thing. We invite people into groups of 8 to 12 to find their purpose in 8 weeks. And we have a addiction lab too on the back burner, which will come after the purpose. It's like, they say that it's impossible to get off opiates or whatever. Well, it's not impossible. Some people did it. Well, how did they do it? We can all follow in their footsteps. Every one of us is capable of greatness. And we all just have to figure out, we have to get into that flow and that belief in ourselves and the self-love and the support of people in your life to help you do it. And we want to be a supportive community for everyone out there who wants to raise the possibility of what's possible. Because otherwise, we just sit in the corner and cry because there's a lot of things going on in the world. We got to come together and be like, well, it is possible to redo the economy. It is possible to make, TV better through YouTube. It is possible. And then how? And then, okay, let's do it. And let's do it together. And it makes it easy and fun,
If people have questions for you, should they leave a comment on a YouTube video, or is there somewhere on your website they can ask?
Yeah, that's great. Obviously, Jeff, you love comments and you get so many comments on your stuff, and we love comments on YouTube. And so you can ask there. You can also reach out to us at team@lightnet.org. And the 4 of us run in there and we'll answer your questions all the time. So you have access to all of us, and we welcome you to ask questions about your spoon bending or tell us what happened. Anything you have, we'd be happy to answer.
Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
The message is that get in touch with your dreams. Get in touch with what makes you come alive and believe in yourself. There's a lot, you can have a lot of voices in your head, and one of them is going to be like, can't do it, can't bend the spoon, can't do this. Fake it until you make it. Like, give yourself that benefit of the doubt to try and see what happens, and then just take one step forward. Because I believe in you. I believe in all of you. I know that that this world is bloomable, and it's bloomable when you strike that light and that passion inside of you. Lucid living.
Zenka, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.